Well, hello there. Welcome to Travels with Geordie. My name is Peter Knowles, and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with my pup, Geordie. All the while, we're fixing it up for some pretty major cruising someday. If that's the sort of thing you might be interested in, please consider sticking around and subscribing. We'd love to have you. Okay, we're picking up where we left off last week with gutting the forward cabin. And I needed to do that because I was really starting to get concerned about what the bottom of the boat might be like. Not that I'd had anything really scary, but one little thing I'll show you. Let's get to it. And don't forget, I give away a Travels with Geordie t-shirt with every episode. So if you'd like one, stick around to the end of the episode and I'll tell you how you can win one. So in the meantime, we got to jump back in time and finish gutting the forward head. Let's start with this Marente. If it's not tucked in behind something, we need some tools. I know that's going to save me at some point. I know it is. Love it. No, actually, I don't love it. Actually, before I carry on with the ceilings, I'm going to carry on with the overheads. Remember, on a boat, these are ceilings and these are overheads. The reason I want to do that is that they're held on with tiny little quarter rounds and tiny little mild steel nails, and it's going to make all these little pieces falling down when I take these off of here. So I'd rather do them now and get them done while it's going to be a lot easier to collect all that junk. So I just had this loose. Let's give this a tug. I'm not quite sure what's up here. I gather some insulation of some sort, I imagine. Nasty white open cell foam. Oh, nasty. Oh, they actually painted all the way up. I was kind of hoping the official number would be. I'm gonna have to try and restore that somehow. Nailed right into it. Okay. Well, I can't say this is going badly. It's all this really cheap old masonite which breaks up very, very easily. However, I just gave a little tug on this porthole and well, the whole thing came out. Which of course, it seems really gross, but it's not necessarily, right? It means I can take this apart properly and put it, yeah. Holes in the boat. Well, folks, here you have it. The port side pretty much cleaned out. Obviously, all the nails and things yet to tidy up, but I'll do that a little bit later. It went pretty well. Obviously, by the time you get to the bottom, it's a lovely mess. If I show you on the other side, this is, what is that? Pink, mauve, purple? I don't know what that is. That is kitchen counter laminate on top of door skin, on top of more of this stuff. Phony tile on top of a piece of plywood, and I tell you, by the time we got to the frames, it was a horrible mess. But on the whole, doesn't look as bad as I might have imagined. Obviously, there's some iron thickness here and some other issues which we'll look at. I'm going to carry on a little further, and then we're going to have a proper look down in. Obviously, there was no ventilation possible because they put blocks in here, so there's just no possible ventilation there. Anyway, okay, as you can see, I scored the masonite around the door here, as I did up here as well, so that I can snap out that masonite without damaging the trim of the door frame here. Again, these are not brilliant door frames, but they're here and they're not bad. Okay, time to do the other side. Alright then, so it's time to get the anchor chain and rode out. I'm going to lay it out on deck in long flakes, which will allow me to have a rough idea how much there is of each, and hope there's lots of chain. I think there might be 100 feet. Anyway, let's have a look at it. And there we go. Okay, so there are 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10 of approximately 10 feet. Yeah, I'm going to say that's 100 feet of chain. And I would guess that's 5/16. Although I have to put a caliper on it, maybe it's 3/8. I'd love it if it was 3/8, but okay, let's see how much road. The road is actually braid which is unusual for anchor road, at least as far as I can tell. It certainly means it certainly can't be picked up in the Gypsy on the windlass. And I would say it's 5/8. Bet you're appreciating that long tail shirt now. 21, 22, 23, 24, 240, maybe it's 250 feet of road. That's nice. But 5/8 braid. Well, anyway, let's go have a look in the anchor locker. Okay, let's have a look in here. Now it is, well, it's got a fender in it, for crying out loud. It's divided. It's got some kind of bug spray in it. It has an abundance. Here, I gotta put the light somewhere where it's not annoying. Okay, here we go. Well, a fender, that's pretty strange. All right, let's take that out. Yeah, well, there is a floor of some sort. I mean, a base. There's a divider, which I don't believe was actually dividing the chain from the road, but it's also full of dirt and some bug spray. Okay, well, let me clean this up, and then we can have a better look at what's going on down here. Alright, well, that may seem a little extreme, but it's a boat after all, and I can pump the water out of the bilge. There's certainly an awful lot more water in the bilge now than there ever was during the through hull escapade. As you can see, all the limber holes are plugged, so the water is having to pour over the floors to work its way back to the bilge pump, which is actually good, because what that does is it means all the flotsam stays on time and I can keep skimming it up, all little bits of wood and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not unnerving at all. It's actually quite effective. It's sort of like an automatic wood shaving separator thingamadooey. Anyway, we're getting cleaner, no doubt about it. I kind of have to stand with my body between the spray and my computer. You can see why it would be very tempting to use a pressure washer in here, but can you imagine, especially below the waterline, the pressure driving the caulking out from between the joints, the seams and the planking? I'm sure you've seen plenty of this. Well, folks, here it is. Oh, at long last, I'm through, and it's clean, and I've washed all the insides of the hull as well as the bilge, which was no fun at all. So if we go forward, you can see I've also washed in here, cleaned the inside of all this beautiful red cedar, both sides, and all the way forward into the chain locker. And again, we'll have a proper look in here for the condition it's in, but I would say at first glance it looks remarkably good. Obviously there's some staining and there's some issues here and there, but on the whole I'm actually very, very pleased. So time to get this dried out a bit. I'll get the vacuum in here, the wet dry vacuum, and drain these bilge bays out properly. Okay, let's start forward, shall we? I've got you in extreme wide angle mode, so hopefully you can see everything you need to see. So let's go right into the chain locker, and here I've got a light here so you can sort of see what's going on. Cleaned out largely. All that cable is the wire for the windlass, which I left attached to the windlass. It's woefully undersized, but that's okay. So if we look down into there, it's all cleaned out, and I'm gonna say on the whole, I don't really see anything I'm concerned about. We're gonna come back in a few minutes with some tools to really examine that, but I think on the whole it's pretty good. Likewise in here, everything looks really quite good both sides. Now, even though there was some, there's obviously some damage down here, down in the forefoot, there really isn't anything terribly scary. And again, we'll get back to that. Some of you who know wooden boats are starting to see some of the issues that we're looking at. Okay, now I've got the sole off so we can work our way aft, looking down into the bilge here.
You can see that it's relatively dry. There is some concrete that's been placed in it over the years to try and deal with something, probably mostly just help it drain. And here you can start to see it's full of water as we move our way aft, largely because the float is set quite high on the bilge pump. None of that is a concern. This water is actually coming from aft. Okay, if we work our way back up, everything in here looks pretty good. I don't need this light anymore. And here we can start to see we've got a little bit of a problem. And this was a problem that I saw before I pulled any of this apart, and that's why I did it, frankly. This is a butt block. We're going to talk about them a lot more in a few minutes, but basically it acts as a backing splice for where the planks aren't continuous. Here's a really easy example of it. This plank and this plank are different pieces of wood. They meet on the outside in a butt joint right there, and so they stick this butt joint on to give it some structure. Well, they're vulnerable to all kinds of damage. They need to have really good fasteners. The end grain of the wood is exposed. We'll get back into that more. Well, this butt block is not in very happy shape. Can you see little dampness coming down here, both sides? Well, that's because it's leaking slightly at this butt block. Now, I got quite concerned about it, and I was able to get access underneath the bed that was here a little while ago, and I put this little piece of structure on, which is basically a little clamp with some screws, to make sure that this plank stays secure. Likewise, I'm going to do the same to this one, because it has been known for planks to spring out at the butt block on boats of this vintage that haven't been dealt with, and well, they go to the bottom pretty quickly if that happens. So I don't want that to happen. I don't think I'm that close to any kind of real major trouble here, but having discovered that a few weeks ago, I knew I had to look through the hull of the boat from stem to stern to figure out what else might give me trouble that way. I'm happy to say that from this bulkhead forward, which is the forward end of the wheelhouse, there are only 2 butt blocks. This one and one exactly mirror image on the other side. None of the other strakes, strake is a word for a plank that runs the full length of the boat, regardless of how many joints it's getting into. None of the other planks, strakes have any butt blocks forward here. So if I deal with this one, at least temporarily, I know I'm okay. And then as we move aft in the next couple of weeks, we'll find any more and make sure that none of them are vulnerable. Of course, I have a solution for these in the long run. We'll get into that in a little minute. Okay, let's have a look at what else we have here. Okay, I don't want to go on at great length about all the intricate details of the way wooden boats are put together and all the problems that they have and all the problems this one have. I'll try to spread that over lots of episodes because there is lots to talk about. But I wanted to give a little bit of review about how this particular boat is put together and what I think are some of its shortfalls. The reason I went straight to that wet butt block is because I know if anyone saw it out of the corner of the screen, they'd say, whoa, you've got a problem going on there, Peter. And well, yes, I do. So let's just review. The boat was built in 1953 in Nanaimo, British Columbia. The designer was Edwin Monk. There's some peculiarities and some interesting things about this particular design, and the boat's built similar to it. In principle, it's a carvel plank boat. It's red cedar on white oak on Douglas fir stringers. I'm assuming the center line is also Douglas fir, which is the keel and all the main timbers through there. And I think the floors are also Douglas fir. The floors are these cross members on a wooden boat, not the actual walk-on surface, which is called a sole in a boat. Am I tired of saying that? It's built at an interesting era, 1953. Plywood was becoming readily available, and it's good. This is marine grade Douglas fir plywood, and even way down here where it's chronically wet, or at least exposed to humidity, there is no damage on this at all. All the bulkheads are in amazingly good shape, with the exception of the aft one, which was damaged by fresh water. Those of you who've been following along know that I replaced that some time ago. Okay, so what goes wrong with wooden boats? Well, they rot, right? Well, rot is the number one thing most people think of when they think of wooden boats deteriorating. Well, they do rot, but rot is a very generic term. Really, wood rot only happens with fresh water where it's exposed to constant moisture, oxygen, and rot spores, whatever mold or decay. There's probably thousands of them. Someone knows more about this can tell me. Well, that tends to happen up higher on the boats, places where fresh water, rainwater, like we have right now because it's been pouring rain for 2 weeks, works its way down through chronic leaks, chronically wet, and you get rot. It's a problem, but you know what? It doesn't bother me in the least. Well, at least a little bit. I can fix that because it's all above the waterline. My life can go on. I can go cruising. I can do whatever I want to do and just keep fixing those things. Not a problem.
The next thing is problems rot below the waterline. Well, they're not exactly rot. Let's have a look at this example right here. You can see that this frame is white oak, steam bent white oak, and right about here it starts to look, well, rotten. Now this isn't rot. We'll go into this a little more in a minute. But what I can tell you is the water line is right here. Well, maybe you could tell. It really sort of looks like it deteriorates below the water line. Well, this is actually called, it could be one of two things, but I'm pretty sure it's called iron sickness. This boat is nailed, fastened with iron, they're galvanized, thank gosh, iron nails that are driven in from the outside and then clinched over. If you're able to see here or maybe here, basically the nail came through and someone on the inside bent it over so that it was like folded over on the inside. Great way to build a boat, not a really great way to fix a boat. Not easy to remove those if I want to refasten, they may have to stay in. But because they're galvanized steel, the galvanizing tends to fail over time, especially if they're underwater. And we'll get back to that in a minute. So what happens is the galvanizing comes off and the steel is exposed. And what happens then is they rust. And when they rust, they oxidize, and that damages the lignin in the wood. The lignin being the pulp that's within the tubes, the fibers of the wood, and it basically dissolves and you get rot. Although it's not actually rot, it's another process that's deteriorating the wood. Got to deal with that. There's another kind of damage that you get below the waterline in a wooden boat, and that's from electrolysis corrosion, which is brought up by electric currents. We're going to get back to that in a minute. There's none of that in the forward end of this boat. Not serious anyway, with the possible exception that this may have been exacerbated by electrolysis rot as well. Anyway, rot in a nutshell. Tell you what, to make this slightly less boring, I made up a little video about butt blocks. Why don't you watch that now?
Okay, so here I've created a pretty generic image of some standard carvel planking, with one plank having the aforementioned evil butt joint. Well, it's basically where a plank isn't long enough to go all the way and you need to put a butt joint to make it longer. And on the back side you can see that butt joint is backed up with a butt block, basically a splice so that screws can come through and connect it all together. Well, first off, let's get rid of the butt block. Next thing to do is to scarf out, in other words, cut out the ends of the existing planks on a bevel at an angle. The angle is normally about 1 in 8, so here I've cut them away, and what I'm going to do now is slather both sides of these with some epoxy, and my representation of epoxy in 3D world anyway, and bring in what's called a Dutchman, which is a replacement piece cut to fit. And once that is set in place, bonded, screwed and clamped, it becomes a permanent part of it, and it effectively is a single plank after that. Pretty cool. Now I just have to do about 50 of them.
Okay then, rot, iron sickness, and electrolysis, delignification are problems pretty much all wooden boats share. But this boat and those similar to it share one more problem, which I think is actually its most serious problem. If you look right here at this stringer here, you can see that right here the frames take a pronounced bend behind this stringer. Well, this gets more and more pronounced as you move aft. As you look up forward, this stringer is basically a continuous curve. As you move aft, it becomes more and more pronounced there. Well, that's for a couple of reasons. The design part of it is because this boat is a hard chine. It starts about where I'm sitting, works its way all the way a few inches under the waterline, all the way to the transom where it's almost a 90 degree. The transom of this boat is almost flat on the bottom. In other words, it's a flat bottom boat. Very hard chine just below the waterline. Means it glides through the water beautifully. It's only drawing about 2 inches of water at the stern, and underway the water just sort of glides off the back with almost no wake. Brilliant. Thank you, Edwin Monk. Except it creates a corner. Well, steam bent oak frames aren't particularly good at going around corners. It's not even a very sharp corner here, and I can tell you this frame is broken. This frame is broken. This frame doesn't appear to be broken, but you know, running my finger along it doesn't actually guarantee that it's not broken. In fact, if you look closely, of course you're going to disregard the fact that my bilge hose is just stuck out through the side of the boat, but that's temporary. This stringer was notched, this bulkhead was notched around the stringer when it was built. Well, now there's a half-inch gap here. You can see it's also happened here because the paint is left. The side of the boat here has shifted out half an inch over the last 50 some odd years.
Now that alone isn't tragic. Lots of boats shift and move around. As long as you stabilize it, it's not the end of the world. But it is a sign of a problem. And the problem is, as I've said, you can't expect steam bent oak frames to take that kind of bend and not break, especially over time. The boats weren't meant to last that long. The other thing that happens is a round bottom boat has the strength of an egg. It's very, very strong. You put a corner in it and suddenly loads on the keel and weight loads and other kinds of loads on it are flexing that corner because it's not meant to be strong. And they didn't build it strong from here aft. In fact, it's really bad. So there needs to be a system to strengthen up this connection. And as I said, as you move aft, it gets worse and worse. There'll be a lot more upcoming on this. I just needed to mention it now, and I won't talk about it anymore, I promise. With the exception of a brief discussion on sistering. Well, if you look down here, you can see these two pieces of wood are actually laminated up, thin pieces of, I believe, red oak, not ideal. Someone added at some point, screwed them through from the inside. I don't know if they're also screwed from the outside. This is a sister frame. This is meant to give strength to the existing deteriorated frame. And in fact, they go right down in to the bilge, and you can see that someone has put some concrete in here after that subsequent. So I don't know if this concrete is actually doing anything in particular. Maybe it was, they'd hope it would help with leaks, hope to make a level surface so that water in the bilge would drain aft, which sometimes concrete is put in for. Anyway, I'm not going to mess with it, especially as I'm afloat. So anyway, just want to talk about sistering. Well, I'm going to sister the whole boat, actually. I'm going to put extra frames in every frame bay up to above the water line. And yes, I'm going to do it in plastic. High density molecular weight plastic. It's a white, very strong, ridiculously expensive, very malleable, flexible, holds screws really well. There's a lot to be said for it, and I don't want to take all the flack right now about plastic frames. There's going to be lots of episodes about that happening, but just so you know what I'm going to do, I thought I'd better tell you. So the frames will go down, and they're going to go mid-bay. In other words, not up against the existing frames like this ones are. I believe it's much stronger to actually put sisters mid-space between the bays. These frames are on 9-inch centers, which will effectively give me frames on 4.5-inch centers. The advantage of that is it doesn't create point strength. It makes a total system of strength. It also means that where the new fasteners will go is as far away from the existing fasteners as possible, which are likely to be deteriorating these planking somewhat. So another fastener put nearby here is never going to be as strong as one put in here. The other thing that I can do then is, because I won't be interfering with my floors in any way, I can run these new frames right down and right across the top of the centerline timber in a continuous frame for most of the boat anyway, which will give me fantastic combination frame, floor, sort of breastwork type connection across the boat, which I think is also vulnerable in this boat. That's all I'm going to say about this stuff for now. This has gone on long enough. I'm very sorry.
I think it's time for a beer. So, hey, well then welcome to the beer of the week. In my favorite new part of the boat, I just love the forecastle. There's something about it. It's so roomy. It's all this wood. It's just, I'm really excited about getting going on this, although it's not going to be for a little while. Anyway, so what do we have? This week we have from Orion 1-1 a Poppy Seed IPA. I can't say I have really high expectations for this because, well, it was discounted almost $2.50. But Poppy Seed, I actually used to really love a Poppy Seed cheesecake that my ex-wife used to make me for my birthday every year. So who knows, maybe this will be absolutely delicious. All right, so Poppy Seed IPA. Let's see if I can not make a mess of pouring it, as I, well, often do. Let's see, just a little bit ahead at the end without it going too crazy. Okay, so Poppy Seed IPA. Cheers in the wonderful big forecastle. You know, that's okay. And cheap. It's really tart. It's hoppy, yes, because it's an IPA. And it has that hoppy background, but it also has a tartness, almost a pepperiness. I like it. I'm going to run out and buy some more at that price, no doubt about it. And that makes it a great beer to cheers Kent Foley, who came aboard this week as a new patron. Thanks so much, Kent. And of course, my thanks goes out and cheers to all my patrons and other such supporters. I couldn't possibly do this every week without you. Cheers to you all. That really is okay. So, you're wondering how you can win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. It's really very simple. Just use the word folksel. Folksel. What is folksel anyway? You've heard me say it before. It's a 3-part concatenation. It is the only one in the English language. I don't even know. It's shortened from forward castle. Folksel. F-O''C''SLE. 2 apostrophes in one word. How about that? Folksel. Say it with me, folks. Folksel. Okay, use the word folksel in a comment down below. And I'll pick at random for the first 24 hours worth of comments. And if I pick your comment, you'll win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt and we'll send it right off you. So congratulations to the winner. Cheers. See y'all next week.